House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones are similar in many ways. One way is how both shows prepare us for the spectacle. They put the chess figures on the board and explain the rules, while we are waiting for the actual game of chess to start. Characters and their positions are set, and we only need a signal to start. The execution of Ned Stark was that last sparkle that started bloody war for the Iron Throne. So was the death of Lucerys. And after the first sparkle, fire finally starts burning. Speaking of House of the Dragon, there are many things that the show gets right. From costumes and decorations to dialogues, and from makeup to acting. But the show is not perfect by any means. Personally, my biggest problem throughout the first season was the show's pacing. At some points it feels like the show deliberately slows down, as if to take a break, look behind and then move forward. Pretty significant time jumps don't help either. I am sure this kind of format is more suitable for a book form. However, I would not argue that this was executed pretty well on screen. But my biggest problem is how the characters age in this show. I mean, some characters age, but some characters don't. Like Daemon Targaryen, who was brilliantly portrayed by Matt Smith. He doesn't change much. It's like time has no power over him. I'm not gonna compare him to Viserys because Viserys' deterioration was caused by his sickness and not by his age. And speaking of Viserys Targaryen, Paddy Considine did an incredible work portraying him in this show. Episode 8 was shocking, heartbreaking, and frankly speaking, pretty hard to watch. The scene in the throne room and the last dinner scene reminded me of the best scenes from Game of Thrones.
But tonight, I wish you to see me as I am. Not just a king, but your father, your brother, your husband, and your grandsire.
Which inevitably brings us to the next point, which is writing. Because Game of Thrones used to be known for its witty and clever dialogues, something that was obviously lost after George Martin's books came to an end. That affected Game of Thrones in a very negative way. For the lack of book source, simplified the world drastically and made the whole story feel much smaller. Luckily, House of the Dragon takes its time and doesn't rush, and lets us get invested into the story gradually, slowly, and then slaps hard with incredible last episodes. Violence here is portrayed naturally in the best traditions of Game of Thrones. House of the Dragon also inherits something else from Game of Thrones: its focus on realism. Dark scenes look as dark as they would look in reality. Mist and rain, especially in the last episode, serve the same purpose. And that looks very different from intentionally polished The Rings of Power. It gives the show a more down-to-earth look. I'm not saying that one is better than another one. They are just very different. Rings of Power is an epic fantasy, while House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones never really put an accent on fantasy elements. They are focused more on the characters and their political relationships. Speaking of the characters again, I already mentioned that Daemon doesn't really change much. I would love to bring the opposite example. Aemon Targaryen, who grows too fast compared to his own siblings and Rhaenyra's children. I understand that he must look intimidating, especially with one eye, and remind us a lot about his uncle Daemon. And I personally don't mind this. Overall, House of the Dragon was really good, especially the last 3 episodes. It has much in common with the first season of Game of Thrones, meaning that we will have more action in the future seasons. Luckily, Fire and Blood is a finished book, so we don't have to worry that it'll end up like its predecessor.